do it all or don't do it at all, because why would I do it if I'm not all in? Then I can just leave it, because other people would enjoy it more and they would do a better job. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. It's just a waste of time if you're doing something you don't really enjoy and you don't want to put a lot of focus and energy in it. Either do it 100% or leave it.
Hello and welcome to the Ronny Leber Show, where every week we bring you fascinating guests with inspiring stories of success and overcoming obstacles from the world of sports, business and entertainment. To support this channel, please subscribe, turn on the notification bell and hit the like button so that we can deliver you the best content possible. Since she was born, everything turned around boats and speed. When turning 6, her passion for race cars ignited, and turned on by the drive of speed and adrenaline, she took on her journey of becoming a race car driver. Until she was 16 years old, she celebrated many success in kart sports. With that momentum, she turned to Formula Sports, where she was already quite successful on the track. Since those days, she is also a race car instructor and was even part of the McLaren Performance Academy. Now she's leading a marine licensing company, and she's also a host on a Formula One TV show. She's joining us live from Graz, Austria. Please welcome, here is Corinna Kamper. Woo!
That was a nice introduction. Thank you.
You're welcome. Corinna, when you're listening to all of your successes and to all your journey, you're still quite young. What comes to mind to you?
It's weird. I don't feel like it's success. It's just things I always loved doing and I just grew up in it. So it just feels like I always did what I loved the most. And I also had amazing sponsors, amazing parents, a great family who was always there for me, a great school who supported racing back in the days. And I'm just honestly really, really thankful for everything I got and everything I had in life already, because I feel just really blessed to get so many chances and opportunities in my life.
Well, that sounds very, very beautiful, and also very grateful the way that you're saying it as well. I'm wondering, what was it that you imagined becoming as a kid? Because I already said that when you were 6 years old, you already had this passion to race in karts. Was this like your childhood dream to become a race car driver, or maybe even Formula One driver, or what was it?
Yeah, it was definitely a race car driver, because like you said, I started when I was 6 and I was just always racing my whole life. I was just in karts, later on in Formula classes like BMW, ADAC, Formula Renault. And it was just, for me, it was always clear to be a race car driver because I didn't know anything else. I was racing until I was 20 years old. I was with McLaren. And, when it suddenly stopped, it was even more weird for me being 20s. Like, what am I going to do with my life? Because I was just racing my whole life. I was school and racing. And when it finished, it was a bit harder really to find out who I am and what I am apart from racing. And that was a really cool part of my life too, looking back. It's weird to say looking back. I'm 28 now, so it's been the last 8 years finding out who Corinna is apart from the race car driver. But for me, yeah, it was always being a racing driver.
Before going back to the race car driver, just picking up on that, afterwards, when you were changing your career, because I believe that many people at some point of their lives, they have been doing something for some time and then they might actually pivot and do something else. How did you figure out for yourself what it's going to be? Or are you still on that path?
I think we're more or less always on that path. I don't think you ever get off it as long as you're willing not to stick to something. Because now I was with Dancing Stars, like the Austrian version of Let's Dance or Dancing with the Stars, and I never figured out I would be a dancer. Like I was a race car driver, it's one of the most masculine sports there is. And if you just always push yourself, I would never have thought to be a dancer or like be in the finals, to grow that much. And I think if you're always willing to grow and look for another path of yourself and new layers of yourself which you haven't found, then I think you can always grow.
Absolutely. And I haven't even mentioned that yet, that you were also at the final of Dancing Stars, which is basically, yes, the Austrian version of Dancing with the Stars. And we'll get to that later. And I think it's very, very beautiful to listen to you. Also, the way that you see and that you approach that also from a very grounded perspective. So, looking back at your journey when you were growing up and you got into race cars. Tell me how that was. Also, especially as a girl coming into, as you already said, a very male-dominated industry and sports. How were the first steps, and how did you grow into that?
When I was really young, when I was like 6 to 10, I didn't realize I was something special. You know, it has always been the same for me, because I think when you're that young, you're not really seeing a difference between, like, this is a boy race car driver and this is a girl race car driver. Of course, you know, everyone who has kids knows there's a boy girl thing, but I didn't really see the difference. I just always understood I'm the only girl, but you know, you're not thinking as a kid, why am I the only girl and why am I the only one doing it? I just thought that's a coincidence. And actually, when I was first racing, I was karting and I had my helmet on, and there was Gustav Auinger standing next to my dad. And Gustav Auinger is like a former Formula One driver, and he's really famous in Austria. And he watched me, and he went to my dad and said, "You have to support that boy. He's quick." And because there's no difference, you know, you're wearing your helmet, and no one knows what you are, if you're a boy or a girl. And I thought always that is the nice thing about it, that there is no difference. But of course, later on, it was always important who won the race and where did the girl end up, especially later in formula classes. It was like 40 drivers and there was one girl. So that was always had the attention, and whatever I did, everyone knew, which was something I really honestly grew into, because when I was little, I always got the microphone in my hand. It's like, I'll say something because you're the girl who drives cars. So just say something at the podium or later on. Also, when I won races, of course, it was something special. But honestly, it was something just I grew into, and I didn't realize it at that time because I was so young. Later on, it got in formula classes, I could see more of a difference.
Before we head into the formula classes, we're gonna go there. Let's stay one second at actually when you started out, because
Yeah.
I think it's a fascinating story, and there are quite many kids who would love to become a race car driver. Like they're watching on TV in Europe, for example, Formula One, or maybe also around the world, or they're maybe watching NASCAR, whatever it is, wherever they come from, and they are like, I would love to do that. And I was one of those kids. I was like, I would love to do that. But I had no idea how to get into that because my parents had nothing to do with racing and so on. Did you come out of a racing family, or how did you actually get into that? Like, and what is the normal way, so to say, to get into racing?
Well, first of all, like with every sport, if you want to be successful in it, you have to start quite young. So, like I said, I think Michael Schumacher was 4 years old, but my family had nothing to do with racing. I had a friend, which was actually a girlfriend, and she said, "Let's go karting," when I was 6. And I went karting, and I didn't know what it was. And I came back home and I said to my dad, "You know, that was really fun. We should have a go again, and you should go with me." And so we went to like indoor karting again, and we had a few places, or still have a few places in Austria, and we went there, and I just said it's just so much fun. And of course, when you're that young, you're not really like, oh, I want to be a race car driver or something like that. You just enjoy what you're doing. And then later on, just a few months later, they said, you know, we have indoor races like once a month. And that's where I started. Like, there were the 20-year-old boys, and that was me with a 6-year-old girl, and driving indoor kart races. And actually, that's how you start. And later on, you just go and mostly buy a cart or rent a cart to go outside on the track. So that's how you grow into it. But I think it's really important for all the parents to not make a difference. You know, I have a girl, she shouldn't be racing, and I have a boy, or yeah, he should be racing. For me, it's really important to also open up to the parents, say, you know, go karting with your girl, because in the end of the day, there like only 6% of the licenses go to girls, which is so little. And I think there is no difference between why should a girl race and why shouldn't she. It's just that you don't have it back in your mind or in your head to say, I want my girl to go karting, because it's not a girl thing. And I think we should be more open to say, you know, it's a girl and she can still race.
So you said that like later on in the journey you buy a cart. How expensive is it actually to pursue the career of a race car driver? Because that's also something many people believe, and it might be true, that it's quite expensive. And we know those old movies also where basically people are buying themselves into Formula One. But I believe you cannot do this anymore. But as a starter, how much money do you need?
Oh, that's horrible. I was actually in a still good point where it wasn't too expensive, but the last, I talked with a lot of people, and the last like 10, 15 years, it changed a lot. It changed massively. And you need actually sponsors right from the beginning. It's about, if you go racing in a good class, in a really good class, it's about 20,000 euros a year. I mean, at the beginning, it's like 1,000, 2,000 euros a year, which is possible probably, but later on, you quite quickly need sponsors. You have to be quick right from the beginning and find some sponsors.
Wow. Okay, and then you mentioned after kart sports, when you were about 15, 16 years old, you went into Formula sports. So for everybody out there who knows, I mean, basically everybody knows Formula One, but not everybody knows what does it mean, Formula sports, and what's the difference between Formula sports or Formula One, and maybe then like the races like NASCAR race series or the Indy 500 or the Le Mans 24-hour race, which is actually 100 years old this year. So what's the difference in between those races?
Well, mostly I think Formula One or like let's say NASCAR Indy is more of an American thing. I was last year in America and there were so many different classes as well, which I have never heard of. So it's really different between let's say Europe and America, where Formula One is like the thing you have to watch in Europe, and I think NASCAR is or Indy is the thing you have to watch in America. Whereas Formula One expands now. They were just lately in Miami. They're gonna go to Las Vegas. They try to be more worldwide and more gain the market of America. But like let's say Formula One is just the best you can reach, and you can still kind of pay yourself into it or buy yourself into it. Like Lance Stroll, his dad just bought a team, so that's how you still can get into Formula One. But for let's say European drivers, you just do Formula 3, Formula 2, and then move up to Formula 1. But there were many, many other classes for young drivers, which a little bit dropped away because it got so expensive. For me, there was Formula Renault, there was Formula ADAC, there was Formula W, and there were always between 20 and 40 drivers, where now all those youth classes a little bit dropped away, and it's getting even more expensive now because you just can get into Formula 3 pretty much right now and just pay a lot of money to be there, and which is a bit sad to be honest, but they just want to, they don't want to have, as sad as it sounds, poor people there. So because it just is a lot of money for racing.
Wow. And then, well, okay, so you went from kart sports into Formula sports, and then also, obviously, quite quickly, also, even when you were kart racing, you were always sticking out as the girl. But I can imagine that it was not the only reason that you were a girl that you came into Formula sports. You must have been also quite good at it, so that you also had some successes to show, and then also to be accepted as the only girl into the McLaren Performance Academy. So tell us about that story.
Oh, sorry. Can you still hear me? Yes, great.
Yes.
Great. For me, it was, of course, there was some success back then. I loved racing itself with the boys, but for me, it was just really growing into it. With McLaren, it was amazing. When I got that email, I first thought it's a spam, and then I thought, wow, they want some money, it's going to be weird. But at the end, it was really, they accepted me into their team, and I was just there with the boys. And it was funny because with the McLaren Performance Academy, we were in different classes. So I wasn't the only one back then, I think, in the Formula ADAC, and other ones were in Formula 3, and we were all mixed up. But it was a fun time because I was still visiting my school in Austria, but I was living in England. So I flew back every like 2-3 weeks to make all my exams here. And then I was flying back again to England because I was living near Silverstone, because obviously the track was there, the McLaren's Academy was there. And my team back then was near Silverstone too. And I was on the simulator pretty much every day, working out with the team every day. So it was a weird life. It was completely different to what it is now. But it's weird because you just taking it for granted, because in the end I was like 250 days a year off school and away on some racetrack. Like when I finished my school, how do you call it in English? Like the
Graduated?
Yeah,
Like
when
when
I
you have
graduated.
graduation? Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone went like partying somewhere. I think it was Turkey or something like that. and my graduation party was at the Nürburgring, because that's my next race. So I was never off to partying, and I actually missed out on all the youth things you do, like partying, going out, traveling. I mean, I did a lot of traveling, but I did just racetrack, pretty much racetrack hotel, and I visited so many countries, but in the end I didn't see much, and I was just into sports.
Is this something now, when you look back, that you regret that you didn't do that, or is it just like it was worth it?
No, not at all. Because people were telling me, "Oh, you missed out all the good times, the going out and the parties," and I was like, "Yeah, but I got something really, really amazing on the other hand. I got to be a race car driver for 14 years and just race and do that sport, which is something you can never take away from someone. And I can, if I would want to, I can still make some parties now. I'm 28, so."
So when McLaren Performance Academy, one last thing. Like, I saw some videos also, or some things about the McLaren Performance Academy, and I believe also they have still some old Formula One cars as well. For example, they have had amazing drivers like Ayrton Senna, Alain Prost, Häkkinen, they had Raikkonen, they had all kinds of also world championship drivers. How is this like when you go in there and you see all those legends basically that have been in this seat before? How is this feeling for you? And do you also feel that there is this being lived? Do you feel the spirit of all those great champions?
Well, it's anyway weird when you come there with your car, you get your ticket. So like your driving in ticket, and it's just weird getting that ticket and be like McLaren entrance ticket, and you just can drive there in with your car. That was weird. But then also just seeing that facility, if you Google it up, there's just like a massive lake or like a pool in front of it. It's all made out of glass and gray, and it's really clean, let's say it like that. And it's really, it's really easy there. It's just like massive big halls, and there's just one race car, and it's just like the whole focus is on that race car and seeing all those cars, and seeing their history. I was just so thankful back then that I was being part of that, and that you could watch the Formula One teams working on the cars, and we were doing pit stop practices as well, just to see what the mechanic can do, like changing the tires on the Formula One car, and seeing the mechanics working and knowing everyone there. And back then, I think it was Jensen Button. Was it Jensen? It was like two Formula One drivers, and honestly, I can't even remember, but I remember seeing them from a day-to-day basis, like just like passing by, and you're like, as a 16, 17-year-old girl seeing the Formula One driver, it was just kind of stunning, but still it was something so normal. Like, I couldn't even remember now who he was back then. I remember seeing him and like, oh my God, but it was just normal. And that's the weird thing, because it's like all so fancy, but on the other hand, it isn't at all, because it's just what everyone loves doing. It's just something really special, but still everyone just enjoys being part of it. And I can remember Nick de Vries was one of the biggest rookie drivers at that point, and I saw him literally every day, and now he's in Formula One. So and Nick was in my team back then, so it's funny, especially seeing now all the drivers moving up to Formula One, which have been a part of my journey. So that's really cool.
It's very beautiful. It's very fascinating. And so seeing all those idols, did you have a special idol growing up in Formula One? And also, who is, in your view, do you have also somebody which you consider as to have been the best driver of all time, or race car driver?
Of course, like the normal ones, which you'd say like Ayrton Senna, Mike Schumacher, I think, or even Lewis Hamilton at the moment, to be honest. But I just really loved people who didn't stand out so much, like people who were always there, but never creating too much attention. And I think for me, for example, right now, it's Ferrari isn't doing the best job, but I like how Charles Leclerc is driving, for example. Always he's always giving his best, but when he is there, he's not creating too much drama himself. He's just always like sneaking up and being more of a quiet person. And I actually always loved the underdogs the most. I was hoping Nick de Vries would do better this season, because I'm always more for the people who are in the back, but just like sneaking their way up to the top places. Also, like Carlos Sainz, I think the Ferrari drivers are good. I just think it's really unlucky with them, with the team right now for the past few years.
Talking about the background, like take us, how is the life of a race car driver? Like how was it for you, and also from your knowledge, how is it for the guys like in Formula One, for example? Like how is, because you're constantly on the road, aren't you? And how is that?
Well, that's what I said earlier in the beginning of the interview. I was like literally 14 years a race car driver. I was living out of my suitcase and I didn't have a home, really. I mean, of course, I had my home always where my parents were, but I was just always on the road. So I was just living in a suitcase. I was from in the beginning from 250 to 300 days a year on the road somewhere. At one point, we bought a camper, which is funny with my last name. That was always the joke. The camper was in the camper, and we were just traveling the world with that because I could sleep. My dad was driving around, and I could sleep. And then on the racetrack, you didn't have much time to lose from the morning to the racetrack. Coming there and going back home. So yeah, that was pretty much your life is being at the factory. So that's why I moved back then to England, because I wanted to be close to the team. So you're either at the factory or at the track, and you're just on the road the whole time. I had a really supportive school, which has always sent me the things I needed to learn, and I was also learning and studying in the camper for the next exam. And then I flew back, and then I was at school, did my exam, and flew back to England or wherever my next race was. So yeah, it's literally just being on the track. It's a lot of waiting too. If you have training days, like practice days, you're a lot in the car, which is good. But especially race days or some track days, it was like 3 hours waiting. So you have just a practice for 30 minutes and then you wait for 3 hours and you've got again 30 minutes. So it's been a lot of waiting around too, especially at races. If there are big events, we had a few events in Belgium where we had like 200,000 people watching. And then you had so many events, like small races, you just literally waited all day. So it's not, most of the times, like you can see Formula One is really glamorous. It's a lot of money, but for us, literally, it wasn't. So it's just you've got the big truck, you're getting changed next to the boys, and then you just like sit around the whole day. You're being dirty. It's loud, and it's not fancy as people think it is. You can see Formula One, and they just always like really clean, and it's not like that when you grow up in it.
It sounds like you had a lot of support also from your family, especially also from your dad. Two things around that. How important is it to have this environment around you with people who support you on the journey? Number one. And number two, how important is the factor of a great mindset? Because talking with you, it really sounds like you have a very, very grounded and very solid and also very focused mindset.
Well, I think it's important to have, I'm not sure about if it's the family really, because for me, family is everything, and they're really, really supportive. But I heard from a lot of race car drivers, they didn't have the background from the family and they didn't have the support. But I think it's important to find those people who support you and just like strengthen your back. Whether it's the team, for some people, the family, they were from Australia and the family was just too far away. So they were literally living with the team every day. I think it's important to have those people like honestly telling you the hard truth sometimes as well, and not just making comments or being nice to you because they just want to treat you nice, so that you can really, like you say, stay on the ground as well. Because especially with racing, people think it's glamorous and you get those pictures in events everywhere, and it's easy to think you're better than someone else. And I had a family, for example, who really brought me back to the ground each after each race weekend. When you're winning at life, it could be nice, but it could be glamorous, but it's not. It's for me important to have honest people around me, and I think it doesn't matter who it is, but at least to have some people who are there for you in the good times, but also really the bad times, and tell you the harsh truth. And of course, the mindset is something which goes along with it, to be really focused, to know what you want, because it's like, also, for example, my life philosophy is always do it all or don't do it at all. Because why would I do it if I'm not all in? Then I can just leave it, because other people would enjoy it more and they would do a better job. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. It's like with the dancing I did now, like with my boat license or with racing, either do it 100% or leave it, because it's just a waste of time if you're doing something you don't really enjoy and you don't want to put a lot of focus and energy in it. So I think that's the most important thing. Whatever you do it either full-hearted or not at all. But sometimes it can be hard. You don't love every day in your job. You don't love every day in a race car. There are days which are shit, but at the end of the day, you'd be like, yeah, it's worth it, and I love it.
Well, that sounds very nice. So what was actually driving you? Like what was your passion and the thing that was pulling you forward? Because even in the hard times, like when things are not going your way, when the successes are not there, what was driving you forward? And at the same time, how did you develop that mindset? Did you always have that, or did you maybe go like do some seminars, coaching, books, or whatever kind of things? How was that for you?
Well, that was hard. At some points, you have to accept that some things, especially with racing, for example, it's a lot about money. So, and I wasn't the one with the most of the money. I was actually the one at the back with the least of the money. And some people were just quicker because they had better opportunities. They were training more. They had more new tires. And it's hard to deal with those things at some point, but sometimes you just have to accept as it is, accept it is what it is. It's simple as that. But sometimes for me, it really helped to just accept what's happening right now. And what always helped me, whatever it was, is remember why you started, remember why you're loving it, and not what's happening right now, but remember why you're loving it so much. Because in the worst times, you remember those good times and why you love racing, for example, for me so much, or why I love dancing so much in the worst trainings. I was like, but actually I enjoy it. I love the Fridays. I love the show. I love the choreography. I love dancing, even if it's not so much fun now. But if you just always step back a little bit and be like, okay, why am I actually doing it? And find your reasons why you love doing it. And if, at some point you're like, okay, that's the reason why I loved it, but I don't like it anymore. Like, let's say you have a job where you're traveling a lot and you loved it because of traveling, but then you're like, I don't like traveling so much anymore. I want to have a home. I want to have a family. Then, yeah, maybe you should change. Sometimes it's also good to not just pull through because of the sake of it, because you once started and now I have to do it. Also to be proud enough to say, I'm giving up, but because I want to give up, I don't want to do it anymore. And I think it's also really important, which people don't really talk about. They just really just pull through because they have to. Like in a job, they just, well, I was there for 20 years and I don't want to give up, or I'm scared, or it feels like giving up. But I think it's a really positive point of someone saying, I'm going to go and try something new.
And that's a great point that you're making right here, because just as you were saying, giving up, just because you decide consciously to change a career, does not mean that you give up. You just give up if you quit. Like
Exactly.
it's not. It's a decision that you make. And if you're fine with it, and if you're okay, I want to pursue something else, then it's all good. And coming back to the mindset part, how did you develop that? Like, did you do anything on that course, or was it just something as a byproduct of your career?
I think it was more of a byproduct, but you always get told, you have to be strong, you have to pull through, you have to, don't give up now, and blah blah blah, which is right. But sometimes it's, like they say, it's with a breakup. It's okay to cry and it's okay to be sad for a bit, but then you're gonna learn again. And I think it's also important to accept the weak bits and not just always be like the strong one. And that's what, for example, racing is all about. Racing is the hard guys, the cool guys, like, from the movies, the smoking, the alcohol, the girls. And I was the one crying, and everyone's like, you can't cry, you can't do it here, don't show any emotions. So it's just something you learn and something you grow into. And maybe at some point, also maybe later, you find out where your mistakes were, where you probably could have done it better. Because back then I was really young and I was like, oh, okay, shit, I have to stop crying because I'm the girl here who's crying around. But in the end, isn't it nice to have someone showing their emotions and not just hiding it? And I think it's a lot of things you learn when you think you're giving up. Like you said, it's more of an actual decision. And I think that's a really good thing. And also sometimes giving up could be just like a day. I'm giving up for today, because if you're just in a mixture of thoughts where you're like, oh, he's doing better and he's having more practice and he has better tires and he's got a better car. And at some point, I was just like, you know what? I don't care. For the moment, I don't care, because I'm just going on a downward spiral. and it's not going to help me. And I think everyone has those days where you just like drop one thing and you're annoyed about that one thing, and then you hit your head somewhere else, and it just goes on and on and on and on. And if you accept today is not a good day, then it's actually going to get better than always trying to wanting it too much. It's like, oh, I have to make today great and I have to do everything amazing, which is like more of a giving up, be like, you know what, tomorrow's going to be a new day, it's going to be a new month, a new life. So I think that's also important.
I can totally relate to that, because I believe that probably all of us have that at times, and I certainly do, that there are days when I'm just like, ugh, I don't want to do this anymore. Or like in general, like whatever it is that I'm doing, or when you're really frustrated. But also, I know that then there's going to be another day. Tomorrow is another day. Tomorrow is a new day. And just to regroup, just then, okay, today I just don't want to think about it anymore.
Yeah.
Just get my head clean, and tomorrow is a fresh start. And then with new energies, let's go at it again.
Yeah, exactly. And not be like, I'm giving up because it's just too much, I don't want it anymore, but making an actual decision, be like, yeah, it's not my business anymore today, because it's just going to make my day better, not thinking about it. And I think that's also a really important thing, not always forcing everything so much.
What would you say are the most important character traits of a race car driver? Like, what do you need to bring in order to be successful at race car driving?
I think the most important thing is being quick in your decisions. So that's weird. I also learned about me later that I'm like, if we go shopping, I hate it if it takes long. But if I like something, I'm gonna buy it. I'm not gonna make should I buy it, or I'll look for a better price there or something like that. And that's what's like the most important thing for a race car driver. You have to make your decisions really, really quick. And I was just the other day at a kart race, and someone was, how did you react so quickly? Because someone crashed in front of me. And I was like, I don't know, because you see the whole thing and you have to react quickly on it and hopefully right. Because if I would have gone to the other side, I would have crashed into him. So I think that's the most important thing. And second thing is really be clever, but be brave, because there are so many crashes which happened and you have to go back into that race car, and you always have kind of respect but still push your limits. And that's really weird, because if you're like, especially in Formula 3, if you're driving that corner and you're losing your car, and the mechanics tell you later and the engineers be like, you have to go quicker through that corner, because then the car will be more stable because you have downforce. So if you go quicker, it's going to be more stable. And you really have to push yourself and be like, I'm going to go quicker, so the car is going to be more stable. And that's a weird thing, like pushing yourself to do something where your foot, because even if you want it, your foot, your gas pedal, it's two different things. Even if you want it, your foot's going to be like, no, we're not going to do it. And then you probably crash again, and then you have to go back in and be like, right, if I wouldn't have gone off the gas, I probably would have stayed in that, wouldn't have crashed. So it's really pushing your limits and, pushing yourself. Also, like, even the car isn't unstable, where people are like, you can go quicker through that corner. And you're like, no way, I can't do it any quicker. Or people telling you, no, you're driving next to the wall, but you're like a meter away. It's like, no, I'm really close. And they're like, no, you're not. So you have to drive close to the wall to make the next corner wider. And it's things like that where you really have just to push yourself. And it's a lot of things, really, racing. It's a lot about focus, getting your focus in the right moment. Because with racing, you can't just practice it every day. You just can't do it every day, like, go and play football. So, and it's weird because you're all chatting with people, drinking your coffee, eating whatever, and you go in a race car and bam, you're all on your own. And just now you have to focus, and you've got your 20 minutes or whatever. And then it's over again. It's not like with a football game, probably, where you're just like playing for longer and you've got time to get in or warm up or run. You can't do it in a race car. You just can't sit down and practice a warm up. You just, as soon as you're in there, that's when it starts.
Wow. Talking about focus, because one of the things that I heard that, and you're also an instructor for race car drivers, is that when you just learn to drive races, and one of the things that you need to learn is, what do you do when the car is not stable, when the car is breaking out, for example. Yeah. And because most of the people, what we normally do, and what is the natural instinct also of us, of humans, and also how our brains are trained, is to basically to look at the danger. look at the wall. For example, you're sliding into a wall and you're like, oh my God, the wall is coming. It's coming closer, closer, closer. And the first thing that you actually learn, and you might correct me if I'm wrong, is that actually you need to change the focus to where you want to go, to where the road is. And that basically, when there's instructors sitting next to you, like basically ripping your head around, like this is where you need to look at. Is that correct? And also, how important is that?
Yeah, no, it's because the problem is if you're looking somewhere, you're gonna go there. Like when let's say we meet and I see you and I was like, oh hi Ronny, I would like literally see you and I would walk to you. I wouldn't go like I wouldn't see you and walk over there. I wouldn't do that because I see you, so I walk towards you. But the same is with the race car, because when you're in the moment and you see the wall coming closer, you're just like, oh my God, and you completely forget to steer, or actually also forget how to rotate the car. Even if you like people probably watching, they'll be like, I don't know how to react if I'm close to crashing, but you actually have a little bit of a feeling unconscious, which you don't know. So like, let's say that's the wall, I'd be like, yeah, but I want to go over there. So you would do everything to go over there, even if you wouldn't think in the moment. Especially I can see it with more or less not young drivers, but like drivers who are on a racetrack for the first time, but in a car forever. They're seeing it and they're getting shocked. So like what you said, look where you want to go. That's the main thing. Of course, if it's too late already, I would have a look. Like I crashed in Spa at the Eau Rouge. There's a really famous YouTube video of that. And you just, because once you've lost the car, you're just spinning around. You're gonna look where you want to go and where you're gonna crash at the end. But at the moment, because people are just so shocked, they don't react right. And it's just like stepping on the brakes, like braking really hard, but looking at it straight. And sometimes if you're actually releasing the brake, you're like, but I want to go there. It's actually quite easy sometimes. And I see it on the instructor day. Sometimes I go first and have 5 people behind me and one of them crashes because they just go straight because like, oh my God, we brake late now. And then they're just going to look straight. And of course they end up in the gravel, where all the other cars didn't end up there, but we were going the same speed just because of the reaction of the human normal mind, which would be like, oh my God, we're going quick, and just braking and looking straight ahead.
Wow, that's quite something, and I think it's a very, like, everybody that has no idea if this really works. Think about it if you've ever been on a bike. And when you're on a bike and you're riding along and you see the landscape and maybe a beautiful mountain or something, or you see somebody and you're riding straight and then you're looking to the left. And then suddenly you realize how your bike is turning to the left as well. You're like, oh, oh my God, I need to go straight.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly that. Or even if it's just walking, try to walk straight, but looking at some other direction. And you're not going to walk straight anymore. And especially that's happening with race cars or normal cars as well. Like also with the accidents happening in the normal traffic every day, because they're braking. They're like, oh my God, I braked too late, and looking straight at the car in front of them instead of probably going left and going around them.
So I have a question, because oftentimes, of course, there's the perception that, that men are great at basically riding cars, or this, and women can park and all those kind of things. How is this with you when you have a boyfriend or somebody, or like a man that is sitting next to you, and then you are basically the way better driver in the car? How does that turn out usually?
Honestly, it's fine for everyone, but that's also the problem, because I was always hoping someone would be like, oh my God, this is so scary to go with you, but everyone's just really chill with me and be like, oh, who can't do it if it isn't you? So everyone's just trusting me 100%, and that's a little bit boring sometimes, because I thought people's gonna scream and freak out, but they're like just like, no, you know what you're doing, I trust you more than anyone else. It's like, oh, which is a shame. But no, like at least you have no one ever telling me. Sometimes I drive too slow, which people annoy a little bit, because I go the speed limits, because I'm not in a rush and I don't want to pay the tickets and whatever. So I'm always going quite, speed limits. I'm just really bad with driving into like a tunnel when there's 130 and you're going into a tunnel. I'll definitely catch the radar there, because I don't want to brake. But apart from that, I'm never going quick. And sometimes people actually be like, can I drive? Because then we get there quicker. Well,
I can't. Yeah, it's quite something. There are also some famous stories of some Formula One drivers. I forget if it was Ayrton Senna or Alain Prost, but one of them, he was going like with 300, and then they stopped him on the street, and he was like on, I can go I'm safer with 300 than most of the guys here with 130 or something. In kilometers, of course it is.
True.
In miles, it would be quite a bit. So Corinna, when you actually then let's take one step back, because we already mentioned that this year you were also part of Dancing Stars, like Dancing with the Stars. In a way, you made it to the final. You also, in Austria, you reached a broad audience, and it was a very, very new field, even though you come from the field of sports, but it was a totally different thing. What was your experience like, and also what were the learnings?
Well, when they called me, I thought I definitely want to do it because I like to push myself and just challenge myself. But I was scared. I was really scared because, some people know me in Austria because of motorsport. And I was scared of being, oh, well, that was a mistake. She did that because she's going from the masculine, male-dominated sport. And I was literally never dancing because I never went out. And because I was just in sports. And then when I went out, I was out with the boys. And the boys, the cool boys not going to dance. So you could never see me dancing. Probably if I had enough drinks, which isn't like 1-2 drinks, like enough drinks, and you probably see me dancing. But apart from that, never ever. And I thought it's gonna be challenging for myself. And I also said, like what I said in the beginning, I knew that there's like a feminine side of me somewhere in there, but I just never had it. I never used it, and I wanted to find that new layer of myself. So I was nervous about the first show, but I think the first show we were first, with another couple, and I was like, right, this could be good. Actually, this could be fun, and it's a mix, Of course, I'm coming from sports, so I always want to be first. It's always going to happen. Like I was talking with other girls, and they're like, I would be happy being second or third because that's just great. And I was like, second or third? That's like the first loser. No way. So it's just like when you grow up in sports, you wanna be first. But for me, it was at the beginning. It was really just finding myself new and finding new aspect of Corinna, which I haven't used before. And the biggest learning literally was just do it and try it, because I was proving myself as well that it's nice to talk about it, like saying now, do it and you're gonna be happy and blah blah blah. But I was literally proving it to myself when I was proving what I'm saying. So action speaks louder than the words, and that's what I exactly did. I'm not just saying do something else and try to find out. And for me, I'm happy now saying, I was a good dancer, or I am a good dancer, but I wasn't 4 months ago. And you can just like experience so much more in your life if you're just willing to do it and also allowing yourself to it. Because people, I think, are so scared of being embarrassed or like not being good at it something. But everyone who ever started anything, the best professionals started at one point, and it was embarrassing probably for them at one point. So I'd be not happy saying I'm not experienced life 100% because I'm scared what people might think or what they might say. So I knew it could be the other way around. It could be people saying that wasn't good what she did, but I never wanted to stop myself not trying.
Wow. One more thing that I wanted to pick up from what you just said is about reconnecting with the feminine inside. Because dancing is also a sport of polarities between the masculine and the feminine, and it's different energies, but not that one is superior than the other, because you need both. And how was this for you, this experience? Was this also a journey in a way, like an inner journey that got you to a different place than you were a few months ago?
Yeah, definitely. Always, I think, dress nicely and be just like, I'm a girl and I can present myself, but I was never so sure about my presence on the stage, because it was always like, hi, I'm the racing car driver, and I like to talk, and I actually do like, with all the commentating I do, but I think my presence as a woman wasn't the same 4 months ago, or isn't the same, because right now for me it was amazing to also be sexy, because I never had that before, but not be like, I always thought being sexy is like a cheap way, or it's like only with going out and showing a lot of skin, but it's not that. It's how you move your body, just be really comfortable moving your body, not for someone else, just because you like expressing yourself like you like expressing with words. Some people, do training for speaking, but they never do training for how to express myself body-wise. And I think this is so important to also do that, to learn that in some way.
Wow, that's very amazing, and thank you also for sharing that. For sharing your insights and also your insight with us here on this journey. So because we're getting close to the end, some rapid fire questions here. So, who is someone that you admire or look up to, and why?
That's a good question. I would say I would always look up to my parents, which is probably someone thinking, oh wow, that's the standard answer, but I loved how they always supported me in every way and always were honest about it. They were never criticizing me just because the sake of it, but they were helping me every step of the way, and they didn't shy to have arguments or fights with me, but they were always there for me as my best friends and my biggest supporters, but also being my biggest people who criticize me. So,
Wow, what's the best book that you read? Why?
the best book. Oh, that's a good question. I would love to know the name of it. I just forgot. I'm sorry about that. I read a lot, honestly, but I keep forgetting the names of it. I'm sorry, but I'll update you later. God, I really
What was it about?
It was about finding your way to yourself, and also in finding how to be stronger as a person, and like loving the path of life more, just enjoying every step of the way, even if it's not that great right now.
So something inspirational along the way.
Yeah, it was actually it was not a fantasy book, but it was a mix. It was a really great book. I really have to look it up later.
Okay, well, I'm curious about that. And what is one thing that you cannot live without?
Without my cats, probably. Well, at some point they're not gonna last forever, but I love coming home and having 3 heartbeats at home waiting for me. Probably just waiting for food, but I tell myself they're probably waiting for me too. But yeah, honestly, my family, my friends, it's so many things which I appreciate being home, because being on the road, I'm really happy of having a home, and even if I'm not home too much, calling something home when I get here is it's nice. It's amazing, and I love so many things about life. But it's really hard. What can't you go without? Because in the end, there's war in some places of the world right now, and they can go on without a lot of things, which is really sad. So you appreciate the little things a bit more as well, I think.
Absolutely. I do the same. For somebody who got inspired by you and who says, hey, I want to find out more, where can people find you?
I think the quickest way is either on Instagram or per mail, because Instagram I'm really active. Don't look me up on Facebook. I'm not doing anything there. It's just too much social media at one point. So I'll just do an Instagram. And yeah, like even email address, I'll probably answer it within 2 days. So.
Wow, and the email address is on your website, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. It's either on Instagram, if you don't want to text me there, or on my homepage. But I have a homepage, which is corinnakamper.com, and you can always text me there as well.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Any closing thoughts, like anything, any last thoughts that you would like to give to somebody who is just starting out on their journey, or is maybe thinking about changing their journey they're on?
Do it, but do it 100%. Like if you're always unsure and not sure if you want to do that, it's not going to work out. But be brave enough to be absolutely sure, or at least do everything you possibly can that it works out, and you're going to be the best by just really loving the road and the trip to your new job or whatever it is.
Thank you so much. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for being on the show. Once again, Corinna Kamper.
Thank you, Ronny.
Thank you for sticking with us until the end. To make this content even more valuable for you, please leave a comment below and share your thoughts, and also share this video with somebody you care about who absolutely needs to see this. Thank you very much. Have an outstanding day and see you next time.